Now, we start this episode off with Remy in a cell with Miss Eve, the librarian. Now, how did he exactly end up here? Because the last time we saw him, he had his sword to a guy's throat. Well, it turns out that that person that he was facing off against was extremely strong and pretty much manhandled Remy to the point where he was just on the ground and couldn't move really at all. And Eve ended up there because she was in that same abandoned warehouse and she was trying to help him escape, but unfortunately they got captured by the people that were part of this organization that were running the experiments within this facility. And that's where we find these two in the cell. Now, Remy's making the offer to rescue her, and she's making a point like, hey, as a librarian, I'm going to probably be in danger for my life here because this whole facility is on the campus grounds. So it's very likely that there are people within the university that will come after me. So it doesn't really matter if I stay or leave. However, she mentions that if he's able to wipe out everyone within the facility, she'd be more than happy to provide his boss, Makoto, some very important information. And if they are actually able to wipe out the entire organization, there's a fantastic reward waiting for him once that's completed. Now, Remy, at this point, is like, okay, you know what? That sounds like a pretty good deal to me. He opens up their cage by some secret blaze they didn't know he had, and they make their way through the facility until they come upon the laboratory where the experiments are taking place. It's quite the gruesome scene, for it has demi-humans and humans all over the place, diced up and still alive, and they're forging them together to make some kind of chimeras. Apparently, the people behind this whole thing are trying to understand more of the magical side of things, creating magical abilities, buffing and debuffs. So a whole bunch of different nasty things that they're doing to these people. Remy, not wanting to leave these people in agony anymore, unsheathes his swords and goes to work to destroy them. Unfortunately, they are dead, but really you're just living in agony at this point. So the sweet release of death is pretty much all that they could do for them at this point. Now, at the same exact time this is all going on, we shift over to Makoto, the Orc Girls, and Shiki contemplating what has happened to Remy because for some reason they can't reach him, not knowing that the foe that Remy faced had used a magical ring that completely stopped his telepathy, so leaving Makoto, Shiki, and the Orc Girls in doubt of what exactly has happened to Remy because they know that he wasn't supposed to kill anybody. If he got into trouble, he was supposed to run away. But now they're not really sure what's going on. They do know his last location, so they decide to pack things up and head out there to take a look. Now, as they're on their way over there to take care of business to find Remy, Shiki starts getting a little bit mischievous. He's starting to look forward to unleashing his great power upon the foes that they're about to face. And just as he's getting on a roll of about going to this dive tribe of dicing up their enemies and taking them out and making them feeling pain, and then Remy shows up, just completely throwing Shiki's dive tribe into the gutter, and all his plans, all his desires to just lay waste to the foes has been dashed. So, sorry Shiki, my man, you don't have to do better next time. He does whine and complain a little bit about it after that, but Makoto is able to settle him down for the most part. Now, at this point, Remy also mentions that Miss Eve was with him, and that he's going to fill a whole report filling Makoto in on everything that happened. We fast forward a little bit later. Makoto's read the report and he's sitting down with Eve to talk about what kind of critical information that she could provide them. And apparently she did know the two people in Makoto's photo that we saw in the previous episode. Now, according to her, the man is an aristocrat that held a very important position, and the lady was a priestess of a very high rank within the church. Now, those two supposedly got together and moved off to a satellite country called Konoral, and they were supposedly having a pretty happy life together until they got banished. Now, why they got banished, we don't really know that because any records from that country have pretty much been destroyed by the demon invasion 10 years ago. Keep an eye on that. That only happened 10 years ago, and their disappearance happened around then. So, just pointing that out to you, it's going to become important later on. Now, with their disappearance and those lost records, there's no real way to track them down. And she tells Makoto the way that she knows this is that she's actually from that country, that she was noble from then. If I can just add a little side note, I'm willing to bet that her and her sister are actually the royal princesses, which is why they have such shame for fleeing and why they're known as cowards, because they pretty much abandoned their country to be overridden by a whole bunch of demons. And they shoulder the blame for what has happened and being the lone survivors, which is why they now wanted to build up their strength and go back and take back their country, which led her to actually end up joining this shady organization because they have a vast amount of information. They're anti-goddess, and, well, obviously the goddess must not be around or be very useful because, well, look what happened to our country. So it's understandable why she would seek out such a group. She was mourning. She was vengeful towards a goddess who didn't help her people out. So I can understand that why she would turn to such an organization. Although she didn't expect them to turn on her so quickly when she tried to help Remy, but that's by the side. Now, she does offer Makoto the same deal that she told Remy, that once the organization is destroyed, I'll give you the reward, but at the meantime, I need your help to protect me because this is a very dangerous group, which Makoto more than happily agrees to it. Now, towards the end of the evening, Makoto was reflecting everything that has happened on during the day, and he's contemplating on what his next moves are, when all of a sudden his senses tell him that that individual that Remy faced earlier is approaching, and Remy bursts in, telling Makoto the exact same thing. Now, as Makoto tells Remy to go find Shiki, all of a sudden there's a mist gate that opens up, and out comes Tomoe and Mio. Unexpectedly, no one summoned them, but I guess they could sense Makoto's panic and worry that such a dangerous foe was coming, so they came right away. Now, at this point, Tomoe does tell Remy that, hey, it's time for you to skedaddle out of here. This person is going to be way more powerful than anything you've been able to deal with before, and really, you won't just get in our way if you stay here. Now, Remy tries to protest because, honestly, if I was him, I can understand. He wants another chance of showing his manhood and getting some revenge on this person that just completely manhandled him like a child. But everyone in the room like, yeah, sorry, bro. It's just best if you just leave. And not a second too soon has he left when this mysterious individual has arrived at their door. Now, to say the stranger wasn't quite what they were expecting was to be an understatement, for the first thing he does is he apologizes for roughing up Remy. They actually compliments him on his fighting, and he introduces himself as the guild master of the Adventurers Guild and asks if he can come in and talk with Makoto about a very important item. Kind of shocked at this, they invite him in, and before they have their actual conversation of what he wants to talk about, he asks Mio if he could have some food, which Mio does go get, and she's very annoyed at his request. Now, at this, Makoto asks the guildmaster what he's doing there and what he wants to talk about, and that he starts playing around the bush again, like, hey, why don't you actually speak with me? Just get rid of the brushstrokes. After all, I'm not your normal human. And Makoto's like, speaking with his bubble still, like, what do you mean by you're not a normal human? Please explain that to me. He's like, oh, I got some secrets of my own, and I know that you're trying to keep a real profile from the goddess, aren't you? She's done some interesting things as of late, so I can understand you want to keep a little profile. And at that, Makoto actually asks him in his real voice, so what do you want to discuss? And this sets the guy off for being amazed, like, oh, so this is what you sound like. You sound very young. I've always had an interest in younger people. Now, that sounds very creepy and perverted the way he said that, so I'm a little bit concerned for Makoto, but thankfully Tomoe is still there, so if anything untoward happens, Makoto should be okay at the very least. Now, Makoto asks him again in his real voice, who are you? And before he can go into this whole diatribe of him being the guild master and giving him that identity, Tomoe just steps in right away and just tells him, this is Ludo, a dragon. In fact, one of the greatest dragons to ever live, for he's never been defeated. He's known as the multicolored dragon. Now, at this, Ludo kind of scolds Tomoe, saying, like, Sheen, did your time in the wasteland dull your mind a little bit? I was trying to have a conversation with Makoto here. But Tomoe's not having any of it. She sets him straight, like, hey, I'm not going to let you deceive Makoto. I'm just telling him right from the beginning, just so he knows, so we can cut that BS out. Also, I'm no longer known as Sheen. My name is Tomoe. And she wonders why he has changed his gender to male. And at this, we get an explanation from him that about 300 years ago, he changed into this male form after he had an amazing one-night stand. He just felt so fulfilled that I guess he wanted to change his gender at that. So I guess this is just more of some kind of mystical creature that doesn't have a true form that can just shapeshift. Because if you can just change your gender that easily, well, I guess, is Tomoe, could she ever change herself into a dude as well? Well, let's hope that doesn't happen. I mean, after all, she did make her contract with Makoto, so she'd probably be breaking the contract if she did that. So I'm just going to leave it as that she's still, and a female will always be that. But with that said, Lute turns on Makoto, asking if he'd like to make a pact with him, and if he does, he'd be able to, give him a lot of experiences and really help him out. Now, at this, it seems to infuriate Tomoe even more, and Lute's just like, why? Why are you so infuriated? He's still single. I mean, why can't I try to woo him? And at that exact same moment, the last person you want to find out of someone wooing Makoto walks in, and that is Mio. And Lute, he doesn't even hesitate when Mio asks, like, what's going on? Oh, I'm just trying to woo your master. And Mio, well, you know how Mio gets when someone tries to get intimate with the master that's not her or Tomoe. And she just goes into, like, this murderous look like, Tomoe, let's get rid of this dragon. And they're both like, yep, do you have any last words? And Makoto even joins in, like, this is a grave threat. We should all take him down together. And at the very last moment, Lute is able to dodge disaster by saying, whoa, I came here to talk to you about the Adventurers Guild. And that immediately perks Makoto's interest, like, oh, what about the Adventurers Guild? Completely throwing off Mio and Tomoe, who really wanted to wring this guy's neck for what he was just insinuating doing with Makoto in front of both of them. I will say, if anyone's going to have a chance with Makoto, it's going to be those two ladies first, and probably just those two. I really doubt that anyone else is going to be able to get a chance to lay with him if it's not those two. So just saying right here, right now, the only other person might be Emma, but I don't really think they have that kind of relationship. And I don't think Emma wants that kind of relationship, though we'll see if that's the case as we continue moving through the series. Regardless of that, we get a great conversation between Makoto and Lute about the whole Adventurers Guild system, that Lute was actually one that founded it over 1,000 years ago with his master's help, and that it was based on the technology from Makoto's world, the communications, the maps, the leveling system, all of that. He described it as skyscraper inside a wooden house within that small wooden card. And his reasoning for it is a little bit on the devious side, pretty much indicating that it's for population control on the humans, that this technology, this ability will make people want to level up, get stronger, and become greedy. And with that greed comes self-destruction, and that self-destruction will eventually lead to the doom of the human race, thus quelling the massive population of the humans. Now, we ask if that's ethical or not, and he's like, well, it's one way to control the humans that I've came up with. So I guess we gotta still figure out the best way to deal with the humans and not just have them go fully on extinct. Now, he also mentioned something interesting, that it was the goddess that pointed him to this position. So does the goddess also have the ability to take away his guildmaster position? I would have to presume so. She's the one who entrusted it to him, but it's still an interesting little tidbit that we learn here. Also, we learn that apparently in the guild, the 16-byte memory card of video games back in the 1980s apparently was some kind of romantic number for his master that Lute doesn't really understand why, but it strikes a chord with Makoto, like, wait, how could someone know about video games over 1,000 years ago? And immediately rushes towards Lute, demanding to know how this is possible. And Lute, then he goes into this whole explanation of time paradoxes, how there's two different systems going on for management of time, which explains why someone from 1,000 years ago would have been only a couple of decades ago for Makoto in his world. And with that, Makoto also asks if there's a possibility for him to actually traverse between this world and his home world. And again, we learn from Lute that it's nearly impossible, that although Makoto has the power for teleportation, the fact that he could survive such an event or such a crossing is very unlikely. At this, Tomoe's like, I still don't understand the whole thing, my master. I'm sorry. And Makoto just feeling crestfallen that she didn't understand the conversation that he was trying to have with Lute. Now, Lute at this point is like, well, I just wanted to introduce myself, apologize for the roughing of your employee, and I think this is where we should leave it for today. And he starts to leave, although Tomoe says that she'll walk him out the door. Now, Lute's like, what, you don't trust me? And Tomoe's like, not as far as I can throw you, which is a smart move because I wouldn't trust that dragon with my life either. Now, as they're outside walking down the street, Lute senses that Tomoe wants to ask him something, so he probes her to do it, and she asks him about the life of Makoto, that the people in his world only live for 100 years, and Lute's like, yeah, it's pretty rough. Their lifespans are pretty short, that they won't be able to live that long. And for Tomoe, that's just not enough time, that she has to find some way to help the young master live longer. But Lute's like, there's nothing we can do, it's just their natural course of life. But he does make a point that Makoto might be a little bit of a different case compared to the two other heroes. Because for the two other heroes, they have completely given up Earth. This world is now their home, and they will fight for it, and they have now live and die within this world. But for Makoto hasn't quite given up in his own world, and that although he thinks like a normal person, his abilities would say otherwise, and he walks a very interesting path, a path that might lead him to something fascinating. He might become a world walker, someone who walks between worlds. Now, with that kind of power, he probably could maybe live forever with Tomoe and Mio and be quite happy with that, but we don't really know for sure. Maybe Makoto will change when the chance arises. And with that, Lute departs, leaving Tomoe to contemplate the best way to help Makoto ascend from his normal moral being to a more higher, maybe godlike level being, just so her and Mio could stay with Makoto longer. And at that point, we get a nice little scene of Mio showing up with a blanket wrapped around her that Makoto had given her that she has fallen asleep on the couch, and she asks the perverted dragon left, which Tomoe says he has, and she also tells Tomoe that if she ever threatens the master or get any temptations in her mind, that she will stop her in her tracks. Tomoe laughs it off like, okay, if I ever do lose my way, just slap me. And Mio's like, I will, and it'll be a very hard slap. And to make their way back to the inn with Makoto. Both have reconfirmed that they will do whatever they can for the young master. Now, another thing I want to talk about is that before this all went down, Makoto had sent Shiki out to go meet with Rona to see if she can root out the rest of the Dark Organization from the university to help Miss Eve live a peaceful life so that the rest of the people won't come after her. She agrees, but she tells him, like, hey, don't condemn me for the methods I use, which Shiki's like, despicable as ever, but yeah, I'll agree to it, and then he disappears, leaving her to think that this will be easy enough. All my missions have been completed, the experiments have been destroyed, and now, once I've wrapped up this last little mission for him, I can turn my focus on the Cosmo Company to really figure them out and understand what's going on there, because it is an interesting organization that they have going on here, and she wants to figure out more. So I look forward to seeing how she plans to dig into Makoto's organization as the time moves on. With that, I want to hear what you guys got to say. What did you enjoy about this episode the most? Did you enjoy the world building that we have, moving from, well, Eve telling us about Makoto's parents and the wider world and how the demon invasion began? Eve told us that the demon invasion started 10 years ago when all the information was lost, and I'm going to presume that Makoto's parents disappeared just a little bit before that, or maybe even during the time of the demon invasion. So with their disappearance, there's no way that Makoto should be as old as he is, unless we already had that bit of a time dilation that we learned from Lute. Or did you like learning about the Adventurers Guild and how that was set up and the actual dark purpose behind it? I'm curious to see what you guys got to say down in the comment section below. Leave a like and subscribe, and I'll catch you guys there. Bye.